Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. If you are a brand new listener, welcome to our community. So happy to have you. Know that there is a ton of incredible other conversations, interviews in our back catalog, which you can find at theweddingbiz.com, or just scroll with your finger on your cell phone. There's a ton. They're really great. So I want to mention that last week's guest was Kimmy Werner, who actually works outside of the event industry, and I put her on in honor of Thanksgiving, as she is really just such a grateful and inspiring person. And I thought it was great for all of us in the event industry to hear her, because she gives a beautiful, moving story about how she found her passion, how she followed it, and how she ran into a situation where there were just basically some issues getting in the way of that passion, and how she had to make a big change, which really hurt her business and personally, and how in the end, it led to a completely new, incredible life where she could work with her passion, have it earn, and also change the world. So it's a wonderful story. I really recommend you listen to last week. I want to mention before I introduce this morning's guest that I would love to hear from you personally. I'm going to give my email address. I will return everyone's email. I would love to know, what else would you like to see on the show? I'm looking ahead to 2019. I am ecstatic about how 2018 went, and I'm so grateful to all of you, because if you all didn't listen and support us, we wouldn't have a show. But I would like to know, is there anything else that you'd like me to do? Any other guests who I haven't yet had on the show? There are also guests who I've had on the show who I could have a second time, and I've already done that with some people. Did it with Preston Bailey. I'm doing it with some other people as well. I'm going to be recording a new conversation with Cindy Novotny soon. Really excited about even coming back with people. And so if you want to hear more on someone from the past, or a new person, or some other topics, write me at andy@theweddingbiz.com. Again, andy@theweddingbiz.com. So today's guest is Phil Van Nostrand, a photographer based in New York City and Los Angeles. Phil photographs weddings, commercial, and lifestyle projects, and is an expert in capturing bright, cinematic lifestyle imagery. He's been published in numerous publications, including the New York Times, Fortune.com, Huffington Post, Forbes.com, and was recently a masterclass speaker at WPPI. And Phil talks about some amazing topics that you're about to hear. He has set up his life such that he can travel abroad once a year, and he has photographed in over 30 countries. He has really set up his life in a unique way that allows him to have more enjoyment, stay connected with his passion, not feel so overwhelmed, and have plenty of time for himself and friends and to travel. So you're about to hear more about that. Also, don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment with each interview called The Next Level, in which my co-host and I will bring out some of the highlights of the morning's interview and help break them down in very specific ways so that you can use them to apply to your own business to elevate it to a whole nother level. I have something really special to talk about. It's our sponsor for today, and believe me, we check them out thoroughly. We don't just take anyone. So I want to say that if you need more presence in the market and you're wondering how to accomplish that, you need to check out OFD Consulting. They are an award-winning publicity agency that focuses on the wedding industry. Their client portfolio ranges from top-tier planners and venues to well-regarded national brand and industry thought leaders. OFD Consulting has placed clients in a slew of popular online and offline publications, and they also have a service dedicated entirely to B2B press. So for those looking to elevate your brand reputation among peers through online mentions, guest articles, podcasts, and speaking engagements, you've got to contact them. And one more piece of information I want to tell you, that if you are a small business, and most of us are, and you want to dip your toes in the PR waters, check out the OFD Collective, which is a 3-tier membership with robust educational and coaching opportunities along with ongoing press leads. So check out ofdconsulting.com. So enjoy my conversation with Phil Van Nostrand. So Phil, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show, on The Wedding Biz.
Thank you.
Yep. And it's good to see you here in DC. I know you live in New York. You
Yes.
also have business in LA, right?
Yep.
So you were telling me some time ago that in your growing years, like I believe from 10 to 28, you were, as you said, a hardcore Christian, and how much that really influenced you.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that was about for you and how you feel it affected, who you are today.
Yes, I grew up, my parents actually met like a Christian hippie commune, basically.
A hippie commune, really?
Yeah, in Isla Vista, California. And it was, my mom says it wasn't a commune, it was an experiment, but that's basically the same thing. And yeah, they married really quickly. And so I kind of grew up, I guess my first 5 years on a commune or in common with these like people, but still in the suburbs of Santa Barbara. And then around 5, my parents kind of left that. It wasn't a cult. It was just sort of like living in common and happy Christians.
But like everyone sharing quarters and cooking together. Do you remember any of it, even though you were young?
No, not at all. I just remember playing in the backyard. That's it.
Huh.
But so I grew up, going to church on Sundays, sort of normal-ish. And then when I was about 10, it really became my own as much as it could be at 10. And I started like making sure I went to church no matter what, even if my parents couldn't take me. And so I got into youth group culture and grew up in that. And then when I graduated high school, I just became a leader in the youth group culture. And I was at church events 6 days a week.
Wow, that's 6 days a week. So it was really your main passion.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Did you have thoughts of going into the church as a career?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I played a lot of music back then, so I was in the church worship band.
What'd you play?
I play bass.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I played bass. I also do a little guitar and singer-songwriting and like cajon drums.
Yeah, I love that.
I would do that with the youth group too. And then, my dream was to become a youth pastor, actually. And I was that for about 5 years.
So did you go to theology school?
No, I didn't. I almost did, but I was a philosophy major. So
where'd you go?
I went to UCSB. So
okay.
I almost went to a Christian college, but I think it was really expensive. And my parents sort of encouraged me to go to a public, school. So they didn't have a theology program. So philosophy was the next best thing.
Well, and I want to come back to your growing years in a minute. But as far as, you did say until 28, there was this end point. What was that about?
Well, this is pretty crazy, but I've shared this before, but I lost my virginity at 28. I waited 28 years.
In today's society, that's waiting.
Very long, yeah. I was a very good Christian boy, and I wanted to wait till I was married. And then around that time, I felt like I was constantly just fighting against myself. And so I just said, I don't want to fight anymore. And part of that meant, if I wanted to be like, own my sexuality, then it also meant turning away a little bit from church culture. Like it was one or the other. It was really hard to sort of integrate those two things.
It must have been enormously hard to make that break.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even I wouldn't call it a break because I still hung out and did church stuff for 4 more years. So I just kind of had the secret, And then not until I moved to New York was I really like separated from my whole community in Santa Barbara. But until that point, that was like all I had was all my friends went to church, everything my whole identity was around that. So moving to New York was a little bit, I'd never like made a declarative statement. I never broke up with the church. I was still going to church until I moved. And so
you just didn't feel that you had to live by the tenets of it, in a sense, the ritualistic side of it.
Yeah, it was just a point where I decided that following like my own true north, I guess.
So more the spiritual side
became more true than trying to follow like a set of like a tenets. Yeah.
That's still a very long, you're talking 18 years. I mean, can you identify how that has still affected you to this day?
Absolutely. It made me really empathetic and kind and patient. I think all of my best virtues were just habits learned from being a Christian. Like all we ever talked about was caring about other people, and loving your neighbor and sort of like dying to yourself. So there was a lot of self-sacrifice, and I became really sort of anti-consumer culture during that time. I don't know if that was through the church or just my own temperament, but
It's probably connected.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of like, the things of this world are not, we store up our treasures in heaven, not here on earth. And okay, this is what it taught me in youth group.
Yeah.
Like very early on, I knew that the best experiences I could ever have were free. And they were experiences, not things. And those are the things that made me the most happy in the world.
Like what, for example?
Sleeping on a water tower over the city, like with 20 of my best friends.
Yeah.
Or going to a summer camp, or like riding our bikes down the beach or something. You know what I mean? I mean, I lived a little privileged life in Santa Barbara. But yeah, or like going on hikes with the group, and that's it. You know, it was just good, clean fun. That's what I learned how to have. And I still don't drink today or do. I prefer like real, connections and memories over things. I'm a bit of a minimalist.
When I first met you, Phil, it was at one of the conferences, Engage, I think, and immediately, and you have a reputation like this too, but immediately there is a sense of calmness about you. There's a gentleness. You seem very like sincerely happy, and,
yes,
giving. I mean, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of, I would say, Santa Barbara living and the church life, and I was also like into hippie culture a little bit back then. And so there's this like weird blend of things that kind of made me who I am.
When you say hippie culture, it kind of helped.
Yeah, I was really into hacky sacking back then. And like,
I know the word, but what is that?
Like kicking a little miniature ball around, like in a circle.
Oh.
Like I really loved hemp and my friends and going to drum circles on Sundays. It was very hippie, like modern hippie kind of, going and burning incense, those kind of things. I was like really attracted to that when I was in high school. So all of those things, the hippie life, the Christian life, the Santa Barbara life, were very sort of laid back and not, I don't know.
Well, then when did photography come into it?
That came quite a bit later. I didn't have my first digital camera until I was 21 and I studied abroad for the first time. So I fell in love with photography the year that I fell in love with traveling.
Where was that? Where did you go?
Have you heard of Semester at Sea?
No, but I know there's all these programs.
So there's a big one. It's called Semester at Sea, and you literally circumnavigate the globe in 100 days, like a semester. There's 30-ish teachers teaching about 80 different college level courses. And so I became a student of this university on a ship. My roommate was from Maine. My neighbors were from New York and New Orleans. We started in Cuba. I saw Fidel Castro, spoke to our classes. We went from Cuba to Brazil to South Africa, Tanzania. I saw a lion kill and hunt a gazelle in the wilderness. And then we were, taking classes at sea. We went to India, South Korea, Japan. So that was my first travel experience. And
wow, what a first travel.
Yeah.
So that's what opened, because we're going to come there too. I know you once a year, you take these trips, as you say you want.
But that was the beginning.
Yeah. And
there was a ship photographer there. And so I was in Cuba, taking pictures of kids playing baseball on the streets. And then, and I'm taking pictures on my 3 megapixel point and shoot Sony CyberShot camera. And into that and learning my camera. And then following night, the ship photographer would do a slideshow presentation of where we'd just been. And his pictures straight out of National Geographic. I was blown away by, I was so just amazed at what I saw him do. And I was I want to be able to see the world like that. Not just, shooting from my pocket or it was really amazing. I can do it now. I understand what he was doing, but he just had proper lenses and a good eye and timing and all of those things. But I was just tasting that at that moment.
Well, so when you get back, then what do you do with this whole new, this is transformative, the trip, the passion for photography.
Yeah. So I had that kind of, consumer level camera when I started, and I realized the limits of my camera basically on that trip and knew what I wanted to do next. And so I was still on a teaching track and working with youth a lot. But with my savings, I kind of bought my first digital SLR camera. And so that was still at 23 years old or something. And then I was just playing around, taking pictures of flowers and my pretty friends in Santa Barbara.
So how did this start to manifest into a business for you?
Yeah. So fast forward from 2003, 6 years later, I got asked to shoot my very first wedding. And so
now, how did that, this is so interesting you say I got asked, because I just got back from San Francisco and some of the people there, a lot of people seem to almost fall into their careers where somebody is saying, oh, will you plan my wedding? I saw the invitations you made. Will you do invitations for my wedding? And, that's so, is that the same for you?
It was, I call it my hobby that got out of control, So I was taking pictures a lot. I was posting them on Facebook a lot. This was in the heyday of Facebook. So anybody who knew me knew that I was a photographer in quotes, but I was really just sort of I don't know, messing around with editing and taking pictures. And so a friend of mine, this is through the Christian culture, she had some friends who were doing a very low budget wedding, and they had, $500 to spend on photography. And she asked me if I would shoot their wedding. And so I said, yeah, I would love to. They should know I haven't done it before. Like, I've kind of shot on the side of a couple of my friends' weddings, but I've never actually done a full wedding. And she's like, that's okay. They know. They're really grateful. They don't have very much money at all. And so $500, I spent $100 to bring on a friend who'd done a few more weddings. And then with that extra $400, I bought another lens and just sort of.
And did you just wing it? Did you?
No, I'm surprisingly, for someone who just sort of travels very scrappy and unplanned, I go into a lot of things. I like to make a very strong first impression. So for that wedding, the week before, I went to the exact locations that we would be shooting at the exact times to see what the light was going to be. Wow. I brought some couch surfer friends who were staying with me at the time, and I did portraits of them there. So I actually mapped out most of the day. I read 100 blogs on how to shoot weddings and started following Jasmine Starr, who was a huge leader in the industry. I read articles on top 100 pictures to take, at a wedding, and I just prepared as much as I could before I got there, including having that extra friend there to kind of cover my tracks if I wasn't sure what to do.
That's amazing to me. I mean, just to think of going to the venue, okay, I get that. And then to go there at the specific time so you know because was it outdoors?
Uh-huh.
So you needed to see where the sun was and all that, you thought like that.
Exactly. I wanted to know. I didn't want to fumble around when there was a group of 12 people in the field. I just wanted to know exactly where I would shoot. And yeah.
So how did that wedding go for you?
It went well. It was really fun and it went well. And I look back at the pictures and I cringe because they're pretty terrible, most of them. But the feeling that everybody had was that it was good. And it had a couple of savable pictures, salvageable pictures. But I mean, I see it now and I just want to re-edit everything. It's not.
Is that when you then knew, okay, I want to have this as a career?
Yeah, so after that, I started pursuing it actually on Craigslist basically, and just sort of putting ads out for things or telling friends, I'll shoot your wedding, doesn't matter the cost. My next wedding they only had $300, but it was more about building the portfolio at that point.
And are you still in California at the time?
And so the first year, I think I got lucky enough to shoot 3 weddings. And then the following year, I made a goal to shoot 12 weddings no matter what. And I did it.
How did you promote yourself?
I told everybody that I would shoot their wedding and
just spread the word.
I started doing Craigslist ads last minute wedding photographer, name your price. I literally, I shot weddings. So I got a couple of my good leads from there and people were like, how about $1,000? And that was great for my second year. And then those people, started to recommend me to their people and it grew from there. But I pulled off 12 weddings and yeah, I never really second shot with people. I kind of went as a lead photographer from the beginning. And
obviously you're making money in some other way during that time.
Yeah, so I was also teaching and substitute teaching. For my Christian life, I was always working, my best years of my life back then, and even now probably, were my youth group days. And so I loved working with youth, and I thought that was my only calling. And so I was substitute teaching and tutoring. I tutored for about 12, 13 years in Santa Barbara. And so I had 3 sources of income at that point. It was photography, teaching, and tutoring.
So what about making the leap? Must have been a leap to move to New York?
Yeah, so it was and it wasn't. I always tell people that it was about 5 years of transition for me. So the first year was a lot of teaching, a lot of tutoring, and a little photography. And then it started to shift where it was more photography, a little less teaching, still the same amount of tutoring. And in the end, I was taking more pictures and more tutoring and just subbing only when I felt like I needed to. So when I moved to New York, I actually was looking for tutoring jobs and I thought, I'll still tutor and maybe I'll work at a school or do something. But But did you move to New York City with the idea of building this career as a photographer? So after 5 years of doing photography in Santa Barbara, I was 100% a wedding photographer, wedding and portrait photographer. I would do 20 family shoots a year. I would shoot 2 or 3 different prom groups, 15 to 20 weddings a year. And all kind of in the mid-range level. I wasn't doing luxury things or anything like that. I had started to visit New York just as an adult with friends in New York at that time. And I felt this crazy draw there. And I felt the enormous potential of the city.
What do you think the draw was? It just a feeling?
It was sitting on the subway and like sitting next to someone who looked like they were writing down stuff in their journal about like modeling or fashion. And I asked the guy, I was like, are you a fashion photographer? And he's like, oh no, I own a fashion magazine. And this is like shoots I'm planning in Milan and Paris. And I was like, what? Like, it was crazy to me. And then also sitting on a subway next to a guy who had a camera and a skateboard. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to go to a skate park and shoot. And I used to skate a lot. And I was like, are you going to a skate park? And he's like, yeah, follow me. And I just followed him to these like underground skate park, which I live now like 3 blocks away from.
Yeah.
But my first memory of New York is following this guy on his skateboard to this skate park and just being blown away by like the skaters under this Manhattan Bridge and the photographers. And I just saw like immediately how big New York was. And I started to tell myself, I got to move here someday.
Well, and what year are we talking about that you moved?
I moved to New York in 2013.
Whoa, just 5 years ago? Okay.
So I've been there for 5 years now. And that doubled my career. I was pursuing commercial photography. So I moved to New York because I wanted to shoot the cover of Rolling Stone. And Vogue. Yeah.
Wow. So you weren't, but were you also there to shoot weddings or not necessarily?
No, I honestly, like, there was a little question mark in me that, like, I don't know if I'm going to still keep trying weddings or just go full on with commercial. And what ended up happening was that I still love shooting weddings. And so I split my brand in two. I have 2 Instagrams. I have 2 websites. Depending on who I'm talking to, I really only emphasize one or the other thing.
Maybe this is obvious, but I still would like to hear it from you.
Yeah.
Why split it into 2 different brands?
It was impossible to show like a picture of a happy couple on Instagram next to like a picture of a cocktail drink from some bar that I was shooting. It just didn't make sense after a while. Like the things I was doing in New York were like fashion bloggers and they were kind of like sexy and it didn't match up at all. And my editing style was different for those things. So, and everybody would say this, like you just can't. Also in the commercial world, like they look down a little bit on wedding photography for some reason. And so I just needed to split that up. So it looked like I was either 100% a commercial photographer or 100% a wedding photographer. And I'm happy I did that.
You know, ironically, I mean, obviously I'm not a photographer, but my gut feeling is that if a photographer understands how to capture emotion from a wedding, you apply that in a corporate situation with a brand and you're a whole step up.
I mean, the funny thing is that as a wedding photographer, you become versed in like almost all things. Like I have to know how to be able to shoot food, rings, which is still life, flowers, people, like candid stuff, and then posed stuff, family, you know, so you're dealing with like basically every possible situation in photography except being in a studio. And so that lent itself to, I don't know, I did a lot of other kind of things like on the back end.
So moving to New York and going for this, how do you start to establish yourself? I mean, the competition, and we're talking 2013, the competition is fierce.
It is. Yeah. I think I'm just really hungry. You know, like I work with younger people and I'm surprised when they're like not out doing meetings or meeting people, or I'm like, I'm going to take your jobs because I'm hungrier than you are. And that's the truth. So I set goals when I moved out there. One thing I did was I made a list of every person that I knew in New York, which was like 27 people, and then every friend of a friend that I recommended to me. So I ended up with like 60 names. I emailed every single one of them individually before I landed there just to say like, I'm out here. If you need photography or help with anything, let me know. And then when I landed, I had those meetings in place a little bit. I had a mentor that I was shadowing like twice a week at the beginning.
A photography mentor? Okay.
Someone who was recommended to me. I just met with him for free. I was 32 years old and this guy was like 37, but he had like 10, 15 years of experience in New York. And then I had goals of meeting one new person a day and one important person every week.
And did you do that?
Yeah.
How?
New people a day is easy. Like I'm just around the city. And so maybe I meet someone in my neighborhood or through a friend, or I network hard. One important person a week was like someone told me I should meet somebody, or maybe I was aware of this person in the photo world and I would just reach out to them and I don't know. Yeah, I just emailed a lot and followed up a lot.
Let's talk about networking for a moment. I mean, What would you say are some of your biggest strengths that you figured out in terms of networking to make this happen? I mean, there's definitely techniques to this.
Yeah. One, I mean, I think I don't know what the correct word is, like not a polymath, but I'm interested in everything. Like literally everything. You know, I was a musician, worked with kids, traveled the world. I love like science and math and Rubik's Cubes and skateboarding. And so like it won't take me very long to find a common interest. And I just know that the secret to like good people skills is being interested in other people. So if I'm meeting you for the first time, Andy, and I hear that you're doing a podcast, like, let's talk about podcasts. I'm listening to like 20 podcasts right now. Tell me more about yours.
Yeah, you turned me on to a couple before we started here. Yeah.
And for me, that's like really easy. And I find everything in life sort of interesting. So I think it's easy for me to develop a quick rapport with people. And then he is just following up and making sure I stay in touch like every month or week.
Let's assume, you choose certain networking events to go to. Let's just have that be a given. When you show up, do you have a certain way of, I understand that you want to connect with people, and I love that too. That's my favorite way. Do you have a certain like step or plan when you arrive? Do you already research whatever people who might be there? Do you go, how do you literally do it?
So I'll show up at an event. I will have business cards in my pocket, but I like to get other people's cards. So if I meet somebody, I'll be there. And if someone looks like they're quiet in a corner, maybe I'll talk to them because I know that they're probably feeling a little awkward and will be like happy to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, and I love that one-on-one.
Yeah. So, and I'm usually a one-on-one person actually, even though I consider myself an extrovert. In a group setting, I love to be just individual. Like I really like deep, meaningful conversations. Coming from a philosophy background, I find that stuff much more satisfying than like just talking breeze in like a group of 5 people. And so I'm usually cornering 1 or 2 people throughout an evening.
So you'll just really focus, you're saying?
Yeah. I'll have like a good 10-minute conversation with someone or 20-minute, So
as opposed to really trying to make the rounds and get a lot of people, you're focusing on less people.
Yes.
Yeah. And just get a deeper, more meaningful connection.
And then getting their card because I don't trust other people to follow up. And I keep business cards in my pocket until I follow up with them. So I have some right now in my pocket.
Until you follow up with them.
Yeah. And
my pockets wouldn't hold enough, I don't think.
I know. And so, no, but it forces me to like, okay, I guess it's time. And ideally it's like before the night is over, just a quick email.
Oh, even before the night's over. I love that, Phil.
Yeah. So at midnight, I'm like checking out their website.
Yeah.
Hey, checked out your website. Your stuff looks really cool.
So it's fresh in their mind too.
Because 2 days later, it's already, the feeling is gone.
It is.
Even if the memory is there.
Here's what I'm wondering, because I love this too. I like that idea. As a matter of fact, I'll have a pen with me too, and I'll write on the back of the card.
I would do that sometimes.
Right? A few things to remember. It's not fake. I really want to know. I want to remember. But still, even though you do that, I love how you do it before the night's over, but still to then follow up, because each event you're going to, you're building more and more and more and more. How do you stay in touch? How do you do it?
So my strategy about this has changed in the past 5 years in New York. And at the beginning, I was very intent on meeting as many people as possible. Some of them I might never talk to again. And it was just a one-time email. If they happened to respond or there was like a reciprocal feeling, then maybe we'd get together. But it was really more like a shotgun approach. I was meeting as many people as possible and some of them stuck and those became my clients. 2 years ago, around New Year's, I made a vow to go deeper in the relationships that I had. I felt like I had met every person that I needed to in order to achieve the goals that I wanted at that point. It was only 3 years in, which is crazy, but it's true. I knew someone who knew someone at Rolling Stone. Like I met people who worked in fashion. I met, if I really wanted to, I would be investing my time properly in the people who are important, instead of just like randomly meeting new people all the time. And so I made an intentional decision to go deeper with the personal and professional relationships that I had. And so that just meant like, who have I not seen in a while? Oh yeah, the editor of Rangefinder magazine. Who's that? Who got me a lot of jobs last year? Like I should be taking them out to lunch.
So you just reach out to them, get together, and it's like building a friendship basically.
I was sending like 20, 30 emails a day. And then also, I don't do this anymore, but I did have a technique. You'd appreciate this. I would go in my text messages and scroll all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, this is familiar to me.
Just text up for like 20 minutes.
Just really?
Yeah. So I would actually cycle through every single person that I've ever texted every month and a half or so. Every month and a half. And I don't do it anymore, but if I did it with you, you would hear from me every month and a half, basically. Because on the subway, I would just do text, and then I'd be at a meeting.
And just kind of like, hey, thinking about you and just how you doing?
Yeah. How's the podcast going? Oh, I just listened to your last one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing that too, just to stay kind of top of mind.
I mean, I think because we all are feeling so spread thin these days,
Yeah.
in today's society, it's hard to do that. But when I get a text from someone like that, and I like to do what you're doing too. I don't necessarily do it every month and a half, but I like to do it. But when I get a text from someone like that, I really am touched, even though maybe I know they're kind of running through, but still, I love that.
It's a good system, and it's the only way. It was sort of as a result of like, how do I stay in touch with Andy? Like, I don't know, like it's hard for me to like think of people I don't see that often. But I knew that, I've texted him once before, so if I just text everybody that I've texted.
You know what I think too, Phil? I think we assume that the other person is going to think it's fake, or they're just going to be, whoa, I haven't heard from this person in 5 months. I still think it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Not
at all. And so, but I have to say that's like slightly unsustainable. I mean, I stopped doing it after a while, but it was a good, like my goal was 10 to 20 people a day just to check in with. Now it's more, I like doing this. So like I listened to your podcast today, and normally you've seen me do this because if I've listened to your podcast in the past, I'll be like, hey, Andy, I just listened to like your last episode with David Beam. It was really cool. And then I'll text David Beam and be like, David, I just listened to your podcast episode.
Cool.
It was great hearing your voice on there. Hope you're doing well. And so anytime I think of someone like that, or if I'm like with you and we're talking about Brian Raffinelli, like I'll text his Amanda Butler, like his right-hand girl, and be like, I was just with Andy Kushner, like on his podcast, like you guys' name came up thinking of you. And so that's an easy way for me to kind of.
No, I think tying in some kind of a common bond of some kind is the way to do it. Well, I'm now understanding, Phil, from talking to you, hearing you much more about, like there was a statement in your website or somewhere where you said, this is as a photographer, pride myself in being part cheerleader, part therapist, part timekeeper. I keep the energy great all day long.
Yes.
Can you say more about, I mean, I'm getting this now with your personality, but especially part cheerleader, keeping the energy going. For sure, people need that, your clients, right? And part therapist too. Could the vulnerable, the emotional element we talk about all the time on this show.
Okay, so I think that I really enjoy deep listening, and I think I'm a pretty strong empath. Like I feel I'm sensitive to other people's, feelings. I watch body language. And so when I'm in a room with somebody, I don't want to come barreling into a room and assume that everyone's happy, and if like a bride or groom is stressed out or something's not working. So the therapist part is like recognizing what's the dynamic right now between the mom and her daughter, or like this bride and her bridesmaids, and I'm feeling the room out a little bit. I like sense where people are at. If it's mellow, I'm mellow. If it feels like it needs to be upbeat, I'll like suggest we turn on some music, and I'm soothing, I literally had a bride just a month ago say, it was about to rain, basically, and up till like 5 minutes before the wedding, it was drizzling. And so they weren't sure if they were going to do an outdoor wedding or not. And then I just sort of like sat in the room with this bride, her mother, and 2 others. And I was like, no, it's a little wet outside, but you're cool. People are happy downstairs. I'd go outside and check in. I'd be like, oh yeah, no one's complaining. Everyone feels good, in that voice. And she was like, can I just keep you around all day? Like, you're so calm and calming right now. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's the therapist, California in me. Like, yeah, everything's okay. And it's just the attitude that kind of makes an event, not the actual circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. And, I also think if you also are exuding, let's say the opposite, let's say you're tense, it's contagious.
I know.
So if you're calm and
Totally.
and that's contagious in a wonderful way.
I'm calm and confident also. You know what I mean? So there's not like, I'm not wishy-washy, but I'm like, yeah, this is good. Everything's cool. You look amazing. We're doing this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way.
I want to bring into this too. It really is so connected the more I talk to you. You have written, and you're looking to get it published, a book called How to Live an Epic Freelance Life.
Yes.
And I know too that you travel abroad once a year. As you say, I love it. You put a new stamp on the passport. And
I travel somewhere new at least once a year.
And by yourself. I want to bring all this together. It's so fascinating to me because in this business, we all, if I could speak for everybody, I represent everybody, but we're all running hard, right? We're all working, most of us, we're working hard, working fast. Expectations now of our clients, and I'll say of ourselves, seem to be skyrocketing high. There's the pressure with social media, and there is the competition and economy, and and you seem to have created a lifestyle that is really allows for the humanness. Can you tell us more about all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, man, it's hard. I agree with you. Most people in the wedding industry and a lot of entrepreneurs I know like run themselves tired. And I just think if we have the ability to design our lives because we are our own bosses, like we need to take that seriously. Like I'll sleep any day that I can, I will sleep in and I'll stay up late and I'll sleep till 10 o'clock. I try not to set meetings before 10 if I can help it. I can get up early. Obviously I was here today by 10. I drove 4 hours.
New York, right.
Yeah. But like my favorite thing is a midday afternoon movie on a Tuesday, you know?
Whoa. Okay. I thought you were about to say a nap. I mean, a 20-minute nap.
No, or sex, movie, or you know what I mean? Like, but midday something, where like most people in the world are working 9 to 5. I have the ability to do whatever I want. I will definitely go to a movie in the middle of the day. I'll edit at night or do my emails later. But like, I want to enjoy what I have. And what I have is freedom,
But Phil, wait a minute, just for a moment.
Yeah.
Are you able, okay, so I'm thinking if I'm in your shoes, and I've had my moments doing what you're talking about, but generally speaking, it's hard for me. I feel this tension on my shoulders, this weight, until I get this stuff done. It's hard for me. So I can maybe take a moment, have a really nice lunch, right? Or take a break or a nap. But to do something like that and do it, and you don't feel that pull?
No, because,
or have you had to train yourself?
I mean, man, I feel like a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this stuff, but I just don't think that there's no fire that needs to be put out that quickly. So any email that I have can wait 24 hours probably. Maybe not the case for some wedding planners, but honestly, if they were able to assert themselves, I'm sure it's true for them too. Like you can train your clients to wait. And so I just think that like anything that feels urgent, I respond to immediately on my email or phone. But other than that, I work when I work, and maybe it's tonight, maybe it's tomorrow, but I'll get stuff done. I get the job done. And also I earn my money in bursts. And I don't know how that works for you, but like I'll earn, I don't know, this weekend I'm going to pull $8,500, and that's pretty much my month's salary. So that means that for 2 days of work, I have 30 or 28 days of freedom to do whatever.
That's how you look at it.
Yeah. And that freedom is not just like running around doing nothing. Like I still am networking and emailing and doing stuff. I actually added it up. This month I will work, like take pictures about 5 days that I'm getting paid. Mm-hmm. And that's going to pull like $11,000 for me. And then the rest of the time I'm doing side projects, shooting for fun, networking, emailing, following up with people, having lunches, taking breaks, watching movies, traveling, extending my trips, like I'm here with you doing this interview, but I'm also just happen to be in Virginia. So I'm going to visit some friends a couple hours away and stay overnight. And I don't know, just enjoy my life. Like I don't need to be back in New York and working.
I'm going to come back to that in a moment too. But what people don't know about you necessarily is that for you, the money you earn goes a lot further than a lot of other people because of the way you spend is really, you said yourself, frugal.
Yeah.
How do you define that for yourself?
Yeah, I'm just making sure I live well beneath my means. And so my overhead for an average month might be like, I don't know, $3,000 or whatever. Yeah. And so as long as I'm earning more than that, I'm okay. And I guess I learned from my mother that, I have no debt on my credit card ever, should never pay off my credit card every month. Don't spend if I don't need to. And I play life like a money game, a zero-sum game, As long as whatever I'm doing is like making me more money than I'm spending. I don't think of it to the penny, but to the nearest like $100 or $1,000.
Do you think much about the future? One part of it is saving money for long term. The other part of it is simply, what we know, every 8 years or so, there's going to be some kind of a recession and, there's dips in the market. Do you think much like that or?
No.
Really?
No. Maybe I'm not old enough to have lived through some of those scares, but I was doing photography, I guess I started at the beginning of the last recession. So I don't know. I just came in at the beginning and lived scrappy.
Oh, so it only went up from there then?
Pretty much. But even still, look, you need to have your money diversified, right? Diversified portfolio. So I have money coming in from commercial clients. I have money coming in through wedding clients, which should stay constant no matter what the financial climate is out there. I have passive income from an e-commerce thing. I have money coming in from Airbnb. I have money coming in from another like apartment that I help manage.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 sources of income. If anything drops out, there's still like 4 other things support, like floating me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and also, and again, coming back, you're talking about you're living life.
Yes. And so, and the money like part doesn't really matter. Like I said at the beginning, my greatest joys are not really bought, they're sort of just experienced. I did a whole talk 2 years ago in Vegas at a photo conference called How to Get to London and Back for Free.
For free? That's a good one.
I spent 12 days in London, and by the time I came back, my entire rent was covered. My entire trip was paid for.
Because of the Airbnb and...
Airbnb, I did 4 little photo gigs for like friends
while you were
over
away?
there. Yeah. That covered the entire flight cost for me, and then I stayed with friends for free, and Airbnb paid my rent. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I'm living like my dream in London, staying with friends that I love, shooting, which I love. Someone's like staying in my apartment in Manhattan. I know everybody can't Airbnb, but I figured out this formula that works for my life, and it makes my life really beautiful.
Well, and you also talk about, and again, connected to this, I want to go deeper with like how to live an epic freelance life. And I love what you're saying, about you're loving your life and people you love, and you take the time. I mean, very inspiring. I don't want to talk too much about myself here. It's about you, but
do it. No, we can go in. Yeah, I think this is great.
3 years ago, I decided I take good care of myself with trips and vacations and time off. Like I'll actually plan to be spontaneous.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And block out your calendar or something.
Well, yeah. I remember when I was, like, my daughter's older now, she's out of the house, but I remember when we were raising her, every Thursday afternoon I would take 5 hours, and I would throw, at the time there was, more with newspapers, I would put out like this weekend entertainment section that has movies and stuff. I throw it in the car, put in some water and some snacks, and I just get in my car not knowing where I'm going to go, and it would be 5 hours.
Nice.
And that was so refreshing. So I get that. So
yeah, that's called the artist date.
Right, from the art, Julia Cameron, the artist. Matter of fact, Preston Bailey talked a lot about this with the morning pages.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're totally implementing that. Like that's the artist date. Yeah.
Well, so if people don't know about it, it's a wonderful book. When it's artists, I mean, we all are creative, so we're all artists. It's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and Cameron. And there's this exercise in it, right, called the morning pages. And Preston has been doing this for like 20 years or something. He's got stacks, and I did it for 2 years straight. And
I'm doing it a little bit off and on.
Are you? Yeah, every time I see him, I say I'm going to do it again. But, it's this exercise in the morning. You can find it in the book, but you're taking a period of time, 20, 30 minutes, and you're just, writing in a certain manner. And it really helps get to your subconscious, your unconscious. And it's a great way to start the day and that kind of thing.
Instead of looking at your phone.
Yeah, just all of that, Yeah. But I did plan, 3 years ago, it was a 16-night trip in Colorado, and very spontaneous once I got there. And just being in the mountains and meeting people and being alone and all of that. And then, I've talked on the show about going to Maui for 5 weeks a year ago, which is where I got the idea for the podcast.
Yes.
Because I finally slowed down, cleared space, was able to have these creative thoughts, right? And act on them.
You can't tell anybody though. Like you couldn't tell like the busiest person, I don't know, who's just nonstop. You can't tell them like, hey, by the way, if you stop, like it'll be better for you. They just can't. Like it's really hard. I think people have to like accidentally take a break and then realize that, oh yeah, this is, but this is a truth that I've known forever, since 2003. I travel every year because it's awesome. And I don't even think it's to like reset my creativity or anything. It's just like, I know that when I expose myself to scary things that are different from me, that I grow and live and learn. And that's a beautiful way to be.
So you go once a year, you go abroad and you travel by yourself, right?
Yes. I don't like traveling with other people usually.
You don't like that, but of course you make friends and all that. So you go there and you're not planning a full itinerary, are you?
No, not usually.
So wait a minute. So you decide, whatever, I'm going to go to India. Do you get just the first night of a hotel and then take it from there?
So I guess I'm trying to think of I went to Bolivia for about a month. I knew that I wanted to go to Machu Picchu in Peru for 5 days. I had 5 days to spend and visit Machu Picchu one of those days, and then just be in Cusco, and then 3 weeks in Bolivia. And so when I landed in Cusco, I got to a hostel that I had looked up beforehand, and I stayed there. And on the hostel walls, or the people that I talked to, they're like, oh, we're going to this place called whatever on a horseback. Do you want to go? And yes, that sounds like a cool adventure. That's literally how it works always in the world, always. If you're like a backpack traveler or something like that, if you're just around people, you will hear what there is to do.
And open and talking to people. And
if you just go to like a luxury resort, that's all you're going to experience. But if you go out into the world in a cafe, talk to a stranger, like you'll find out very fast. They'll be like, oh, have you been to that like famous library? No, what is that? You have to go. It's in Vienna. What, and then I go there.
And then you go.
Yeah, and that's it. So, and when I went to Bolivia, I landed in the first place. And then someone told me I should go to, there's like these silver mines in Potosi, and you can go in there, the last remaining active silver mines, and you can hold a stick of dynamite. So I did that, hold a stick of dynamite in my hand and help these miners like carry rocks for a little bit. And then someone told me Sucre has like home of the chocolate in Bolivia. And so I just sort of like bus tickets and did hostels or couch surfing or stayed with friends. Yeah. That's more like backpacker style. Not everybody has to do that. But now, as I've gotten a little older, instead of going to hostels, I'll try to only travel places where I know somebody on the other side. So like I have a friend in Switzerland right now, and I know like, if I go to Switzerland, I actually know 3 people over there. One of my old assistants lives there. I could stay with her, and then this guy I used to host, I could stay with him, and I could probably do like a good 2 weeks in Switzerland and have like the best time because I'm with locals.
Well, and you mentioned to me before, you will post on Facebook. You'll say, if you're going to Bolivia, friends in Bolivia.
Yeah, if you search on Facebook, friends in blank, then you can find whoever lives in that area. And so I'll reach out to people and either like ask to stay with them or trade photos to stay for free. Or I'll even, just post on Facebook, hey, I did this last month, I'm heading to Malta. Anybody know anything about Malta? Let me know. And then someone connected me with a friend.
Yeah, right. If they know someone. Yeah. I did this one single time. When I went to Colorado 3 years for 16 nights, I wanted to go. I decided, there's water rafting in Salida, and I could go on the way. I'd met, actually, it was through a client's groomsman. Yeah. We just happened to talk. He said, oh, what are you doing? I'm going to Colorado. And I barely even knew the groom, really. Exactly. And he said, oh, call my friend. He's one of the groomsmen. And I ended up hanging with this guy, and he put me up and told me where to go and in Crested Butte. But on the way, I was going to go to Salida. So I thought, I could Airbnb or whatever, but I went into Facebook and I said, if any of you are in Colorado, any suggestions, I want to go. And sure enough, someone wrote me back who I didn't really know because I have a lot of business friends in Facebook and said, oh, call so-and-so in Salida. She has an Airbnb. And I did. And then she invited me to dinner with friends and the friends, blah, blah, blah,
That's exactly how it works. And what's funny is that, that's magic, basically, right? It feels like magic.
Well, it's the universe providing back, right? Yeah.
But it happens always. And so I can already hear like some of my more conservative or scared friends saying like, but you're not a woman, or like, it's a little harder. Like you can't just like, they're strangers, but like a stranger is only a stranger for 5 seconds. And then
That's great.
They're your friend for life.
Yeah.
It's true. And if you can approach the world that way, like it opens up a lot of just beautiful things.
Well, Phil, also, you mentioned earlier when we were talking some passive income, and in a sense, passive an online commerce business. I believe you're talking about La Rousse. Is that right?
Yes.
I think you sell beautiful glass photo boxes. Can you tell me something about that?
Sure. They're constructed of like brass and metal, metal and glass. And it looks like a sort of a jewelry box that you could open up with a little lid, but they're made to hold photo prints. So my partner, Katie, she concepted this idea about 4 years ago. It literally didn't exist. We were the first to put this to market. She was looking for glass boxes, glass photo boxes. Nothing was showing up on Google, nothing on Etsy. And so she went on Alibaba and kind of reached out to a manufacturer who works with glass and metal and asked him if he could make something in these dimensions. And then she ordered 50 of them. And then I came in and we built the thing up and branded it. And I think originally we thought we were going to sell to couples who would put, photo prints inside. But what ended up happening more is that we started selling to other photographers who started integrating these into their brand and into their like gifting or upselling. And so we're almost a B2B business. Like we sell to other photo businesses and we do really well, like almost $500 to $1,000 a day in sales.
That's amazing.
And so we went from something like $70,000 the first year to $140,000 to $250,000 last year in sales.
And I think you wrote with nearly $0 in advertising.
Yes.
How do you do that?
I'm a good networker. I don't know.
There we go. Back to that, right?
It's a niche market and I happen to be like pretty involved in it. So we started giving boxes away to influential photographers. And I was connected in a ton of Facebook groups. Like photographers are like notorious for starting Facebook groups and communities. And so I just reached out to everybody I knew and posted stuff and said, hey, like, we've got this cool thing if you're into prints or you want to give something great to your clients.
And then they talk about it and all of that.
Yeah. And so we were giving them away to some people to give us a shout out on Instagram or Facebook. And we were really the only people with this product for like a good year or so until they started like sprouting up copycats. But we were first to market. We branded really well. Very, very good customer service. Like no questions asked. Like we give boxes out for free or any issues at all. Was try to make sure our clients are as happy as possible. And Katie's really into branding and packaging, so everything is perfect with her. Like sticker has to be on the right way. It's pink bubble wrap, and everything is just perfect. And so I think the combination of our personalities kind of worked for this.
And, you know, before we wrap up, I also want to ask, I saw something about you starting an accountability group.
Yeah.
I've heard about this concept.
Yeah. So there was a year, about 2 years ago in New York, where I realized, oh my God, I didn't pursue any of my original goals for moving here. I felt like I had plateaued a little bit. I grew a lot the first 3 years, and then I sort of like, I got distracted with a bunch of things. Things got exciting, but I didn't really like move forward in my career from what I could see. And so I said, I just need, at first it was like a business coach is what I thought I needed. But then I was like, I don't even need to pay anybody. I just need to sit down with like some friends who are doing the same stuff and just say, hey, here's my goals for the month. If I don't do it, here's the consequences. And can you support me? And that's it.
And what are those consequences?
Oh man, they're good. So I had 4 goals this month. And if I didn't achieve them, I was going to delete Instagram off of my phone for 2 weeks. And I was going to delete this game that I'm super addicted to, which is funny. Toon Blast. I like spend literally like an hour or 2 a day on that. But I achieved my goals, and so I get to keep my Instagram. But I try to keep harsh punishments. Like I deleted Facebook off my phone for a couple of weeks once. It was good, and it transformed me.
Wait a minute. Well, that's not a punishment.
Well, it depends on who you are. Yeah. I mean, it felt like it because I was on it all the time. Yeah. You know? I've set some punishments, like I'll put $200 on the ground and walk away.
Have you actually done that?
No, because I did the goal. Like, yeah.
Right.
But if the goal was something like I need to buy new curtains for my place and I just haven't done it or whatever, but it's like feels important to me. Curtains are going to cost me $100.
It's cheaper to do that.
Then it's cheaper to buy the curtains at the last minute than to put $200, so just playing with that a little bit. It has to hurt a little bit, but sometimes it breaks into a habit like Facebook or Instagram or something.
This is great, Phil. Well, wow. What a pleasure talking to you. What is the best way for people to find out more about you?
Probably, I spend the most time at my commercial Instagram account, which is Phillip VN. That's PhillipVN. And I usually do like Instagram stories there, and I'm posting a lot of what I'm putting out there. Or Phillip VN anywhere. You can just Google that.
And people could also find about the LaRousse shop through there. Everything is through that website. Well, wow, great. Well, Phil, thank you so much for sharing so much. Yes. Very inspiring story. I think we should all work to at least have some of what you're talking about. I love it. Wonderful. Thank you.
I aim to inspire always. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Phil Van Nostrand. Wonderful, wonderful photographer. Wasn't that a great conversation? Also want to urge you to check out Phil's website, which he mentioned, and we're going to have in the show notes as well at theweddingbiz.com. And also the product that he sells at LaRousse, which is beautiful glass photo boxes. LaRousseshop.com, and that's again in the show notes, so you can get the spelling and all of that. If you enjoyed this episode, it really helps us if you would share it with your friends and colleagues. Would be very grateful for that. That's what helps us, make our community larger and take this to a whole nother level. So would love if you could share it with people. And I want to mention next week's guest. It is a re-release of an episode from long ago with David Stark. And I want to re-release it because I had a conversation with him recently and it motivated me to listen to the interview again. And I was blown away, knocked out. And we are going to add the next level episode to take it even further. So be sure to come back next week to check out that conversation. And you could also follow us, particularly on Instagram, at Wedding Biz Show. Again, that's Wedding Biz Show. And we'll look forward to talking next week.